Emre abi arkadaşın adı.
Hello to everyone. Nice to be with you today for the final conference of Emergence program, that's Erasmus program. We are representing Réseau Proactif from France. I'm the president of the Réseau Proactif, and we will present you today all partners and the aim of this program. I will let now Emre discuss with us about this project, and after that, Suleiman will take the discussion and present all partners.
First of all, hi everyone. I want to thank you for having me. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about my integration process. And also, I want to thank every human being that has contributed to this project. I mean, it will be a cliche to start with, but as a refugee who has teaching background, first as an asylum seeker and after a refugee who has teaching background, we all need guidance. It will be a cliche, but we all need guidance because of the simple fact that we are forced to get out of our comfort zone, and we find ourselves here in a foreign country, in a destination country, in an environment with which we're not familiar at all. So we feel that lack of guidance in a profound way. So I want to emphasize that these kinds of projects are really important and crucial to us, to people like. So I was talking about the problems that we have encountered when we arrived in a destination country, whether it's a family or whether it's a single person. It's a general fact that when we arrived in a destination country, we all encounter with some certain problems. Some of us have encountered some health problems, or familial problems, personal problems, and maybe the most secret one, maybe the most apparent and also the secret one. We all have encountered some problems linked to our lack of knowledge about the system in the destination country. Even if we have the required qualities to do our job here in a destination country, because of the fact that we don't know about the system, we can't do anything at the beginning of our integration process. So even if we know the language, we know the official spoken language of that country, we have to learn about the system in order to integrate and to be able to do our job here in our destination country. So if when it comes to my personal career, I can say that I was a research assistant in Turkey before arriving France. Uh, Even if I was at the first stage of my career, I was at the beginning of my career. I I got dismissed from my job with with the regulation from the Turkish government, and I even if I continued to I continued my education in the field of law in Turkey. I was forced to get out of country because of the current problems in Turkey, and I found myself here in France. And when I arrived in France, the only thing about which I'm sure was to continue in the field of law. Other than that, I wasn't aware of the system, and I wasn't aware of the culture in general. So I was in need of guidance in terms of being able to integrate myself in the system. So in that stage, the I can say that I really, when I need that, when I feel that need, feel that need of guidance, I found myself in the concept of in the framework of this project. I have participated in the reunions, in the meetings that have been organized to inform the people like me about the integration process in France. I have participated in these reunions with some of the people who have completed their integration process, who was doing an occupation in Turkey related to teaching, and who have arrived here in France and continued their teaching career in France. So these kind of reunions, these kind of meetings, seminars that we have organized with the people who have completed their process. I am now certain about the path that I will follow in the later stage of my time in France. So I want to thank you again for this opportunity, and I will leave the stage here to Suleiman in order him to continue the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehmet, for all you have said. And now it's time for our presentations. For the first presentation, our partners from Finland and Belgium will intervene. Our partner from Finland is Maya Ylijokipi. She's a PhD researcher from Tampere University in Finland. Maya has a MA in linguistics, and she is doing her PhD about migrant learners, mother tongue tuition in Finnish basic education, Tampere University in Finland. From 2014, she has been working in teacher training for migrant teachers and teachers working with migrant learners in Tampere University. She has worked in national and regional level in various projects promoting linguistically and culturally responsive practices in Finnish educational system. And our other partner is Raquel from Belgium. Raquel is a researcher at University Leuven Limburg and project manager in the non-profit European Professionals Network, and she's currently involved in several projects funded by the European Union. She studied psychology with a focus on labor and social psychology and specialized and has experience in early childhood and alternative education. In the following presentation, Maya and Raquel will showcase what has become clear throughout the project. What are the needs and obstacles when speaking of integrating the knowledge of teachers with a refugee background in the host educational system? They are also reflecting some features related to the project topic and project work during COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you. And now the stage is yours, Maya and Raquel. Thank you.
Thank you, Suleiman. So my name is Maija Ylijokipi. I come from Tampere, as Suleiman told you. And we are now going to share some of the information we have gathered during the project. I'll try to share my screen, so let's hope this will work out. I wish that you can see only my main slides and not the notes I'm having, but we decided to call this a harvest season since it's a fall and it's a harvest time. And we are now presenting you some of the ideas and facts that we have found out. And I think that if you listened carefully what Mustafa Ugus had to say in the beginning, I think that you will see that our findings are quite aligned with that. First of all, we have written 5 research papers. So we have actually done some academic research. Also, the other partners will then introduce some of the other things that we have achieved and we have made during this project. But we have also 5 academic papers. And the first one is called Towards a Third Space for Inclusive Education Through Decolonizing and Culturally Responsive Pedagogies, a position paper. And this is more about the framework itself. What does it mean, the decolonizing and culturally responsive pedagogies? And I think that this is quite a remarkable paper. It was first presented in a conference for child and youth this summer, and Nick Haswell, who presented it and was the first author, he actually received also the Best Presentation Award from the conference. So we are really hoping that also the article itself, when published, will get the same kind of attention. Then we have written more about the practical matters, such as elements of success, finding good practices of integration for teachers with refugee backgrounds. And this was published in the publication called Language, Education and Society. Then employ refugee teachers. Now, teachers with a refugee background benefit European education. And this was published in the European School Heads Association magazine. There is one paper still under construction. It's in final stages, but it will be presented in the Finnish Educational Research Association's conference this fall. And then one paper about the assessment instrument that Lorena Codea is going to present you a little bit better later today. And also this has been published in the Association for Dialogue and Universal Values magazine in Romania. So you will find all the links of the published papers in our websites that I have linked up there, and you can also find them, all the materials from there. And while doing the research, we actually started with 6 target groups we were addressing. So we had refugee teachers, teachers of refugees, refugee learners, then intercultural mediators, who are people who usually work in the educational contexts or other contexts such as hospitals or for social services, to help out migrants and refugees to understand the host country culture and vice versa. And then we also interviewed some social entrepreneurs and some policymakers. So we tried to gather the data broad enough to see different kinds of perspectives from the phenomena, because we know that this is not only one person's or the refugees whose perspective we need, but we also need the other side. We need the knowledge of the society they are stepping in. I think that it has become quite clear that European countries actually really need this knowledge that teachers with refugee backgrounds can share, because Europe has changed. So because of the socio-cultural and demographic development has made societies more and more diverse. And also, I don't know if it's which is the reason and which is the consequence, but it's also quite clear that quite many minoritized learners face obstacles in current Europe. And it's alarming that especially learners with refugee background, they are much more likely to drop out from education, even in the basic levels, than the peers that do not have refugee background. So I think that this is even growing phenomenon. We also know that segregation causes both societal and personal problems in several points of view. And I think that this is also something that we need to take seriously. And because of these problems, these features that mentioned here, I think that European countries should build more inclusive learning cultures and apply decolonized pedagogies, and also these culturally and linguistically responsive practices into the educational systems. And one of the reasons why I think that applying refugee educators to help us out with this, one quite crucial point is that educating the community cannot be the learner's task. So the student, whether child or grown-up, cannot be responsible for educating their teachers about their own backgrounds. So therefore we need professionals who can educate their peers. So another teacher who can help another teacher out to understand these experiences and obstacles with the refugees and other kinds of migrants. And because of these problems, these features that mentioned here, I think that European countries should build more inclusive and also and apply decolonized pedagogies. And also in our data, teachers with refugee background, they are more than willing to do their share because they want to use their knowledge to support others, and they want to use their knowledge to find their place in the new host societies. Point is that and also community cannot be the learner's task. So the student, as we know, segregation causes many kinds of problems, and tackling those problems after they occur cost much more than we could prevent them. So it's not only a societal level problem, but it's also a human level problem. It causes lots of human problems, or human level, personal level problems. And it's quite clear that teachers with refugee background have a long and winding road when entering the new societies, because there are many different steps the newcomers has to take. And first of all, there are structural obstacles, such as there are many differences between teacher requirements and qualifications between countries and systems. And in many European countries, teachers have to have master's degree, but in many, for instance, Middle Eastern countries, teachers' degrees are quite often bachelor degrees. So this means that they are not right away eligible to work as a full teachers in the new societies. And even after the Bologna process to unify the higher education, there might be also discrepancies between national systems. And also education prior to higher education affects the factual knowledge. And so does the societal emphasis of the education. If you think about some countries that are strictly, they have strong political points for something, or fundamental religious points or something like that, it also affects to the educational system. So people who come with that kind of educational systems probably have some discrepancies compared to the host country system. Then the other question is that where to find the right information. And I think that all these things have already mentioned today. So first question is where to find the adequate information about the required qualification. Do I need to do some recognition to my prior studies? Do I need to do some complementary studies? And if and when, where to acquire the language fluent enough to study? And even though we haven't discussed this so much within the project, I think that it's also important question to ask whether English medium education is the right solution. Because, for instance, in Finland, if we have English medium education for teachers, it doesn't help them to be employed because the national system requires also the knowledge of the national languages. So I think that the language is a key issue, but there should be quite lots of understanding about the linguistic matters when you want to think about this. It's also what and how and where and when to apply in. So how to gain these qualifications, what to do, where to go, and what are the linguistic or language requirements. And also quite important question is that for many cases, because quite many people who have to flee have their families with them. So if I study, how do I fund my studies? How do I fund my living? If I have a family, how do I support my family? How do we get money to survive in this situation? So there are many level problems. It's not only about the studying thing, it's also about the life itself. And then quite important question has been also that how to get into the system when you don't have any networks. How do you get first one foot in? Like, how do you open the first door? Because we have noticed that this kind of stepping stones, to have some networks, to have somebody to help you to enter to schools, to go into the schools and start to work there, they might help. So we need this kind of stepping stone systems also in the host societies. And unfortunately, quite many people with refugee background face prejudices and not only personal level racism, but also structural level racism, which is something that we actually need to tackle. So then I let Raquel to take on for a few moments. Please, Raquel.
Maya, I think it's Raquel, but she's not available. There's a
The
problem.
problem
there a
is that
problem?
I'm sharing my. I have to stop sharing then. But how do we show the slides? That is the question. How do we share the slides, because we have common slides? Can you make us both appear to the screen simultaneously?
Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. If you could
İkisi aynı anda ekran paylaşabilir mi?
continue sharing your screen.
I tried to share,
I
but
cannot
then.
hear you.
Maya,
Can you hear
do
me?
you have two different slides or just
No,
one?
we have one slideshow and we are using that together.
Okay.
I don't hear you.
So you have to have us both presenting simultaneously. Put us both in the on screen.
Okay. You are both on the screen.
Okay, good.
You can share your slide.
Good. Thank you.
Maya, you are on the screen now, and we can all see your slide. Is there a problem or
No,
I don't know?
that is fine. But can you hear Raquel? Because Raquel was supposed to speak now.
No, I can't hear. Raquel, aren't you available, or is there a technical problem?
I think there is something that you cannot. We cannot hear her. I have to have the other computer on. Because I should hear Raquel in order to change the slides in her pace. That is the problem.
I see. Normally, she just need to switch on his microphone.
Yeah.
Her microphone.
Raquel, can you hear us? Oh, she's here. Okay. Can you hear us now? Raquel, have your mic on. We can't hear you. Put your mic on. Make some noise. Should I just take over? If you want to, I can take over, because otherwise they just wait. Is it okay? Raquel, can you hear us? Please show if you can hear me. Okay. Is it okay if I take over now? I'll just do all the presentation, because otherwise we don't know what to do. Okay. I'll just go here. Okay, I'll just have to take over because there are now some technical problems. It's also quite clear that the teachers with refugee backgrounds, they have many assets with them. They have such knowledge that the people or the teachers in the host country doesn't have. And this is the knowledge I was talking about when I said about that the learner cannot be responsible for educating their teachers. So they have, of course, they have prior knowledge of languages and cultures for the other refugee learners. But for some people, they share the language and culture, but in many cases, they also understand the meaning of the shared language and culture better than the host country teachers who do not have any experience of cross-cultural work or communication. Secondly, they also have prior knowledge of learning cultures or educational cultures from other kinds of other parts of the world. This means that even if it's quite difficult to see you when you are surrounded by similar people who have similar experiences than you, but for instance, quite many people who migrate or flee to Finland, they highly criticize Finnish educational system because for the children, the school days are quite short and there's not lots of homework. So Finnish school looks quite easy. But for some reason, that easy system it ends up having quite good results, learning results for most of the students. Not all the students, and I don't mean that the Finnish educational system per se is something that it's good or perfect. But my idea is that for me as a Finn, that is the normal educational system. But for somebody coming from different kind of educational culture can think that it's not even a school, it's daycare, it's a fun time, because the idea of school is maybe something different. You have to obey the teacher a lot. In Finnish schools, students have lots of freedoms, for instance. So if you don't understand that some of your students might have different kinds of educational cultural background, that might also affect some things going on to the school. The wildest example of this was that when a colleague of mine told that she was teaching students who were teenagers, and they were all, most of them were refugees, and some of them were migrants with another reasons to come to Finland. And then the teenagers said to her that, "Teacher, we do not believe you because you are not hitting us, because you are not punishing us physically." And my colleague was like, "What on earth? Of course I'm not hitting you. In Finland, you are not supposed to hit anybody, not your own children and not your students in any case. It's strictly forbidden." But many of those students came to the quite different kind of cultural background. And the idea was that if teacher was punishing the students, the teacher was caring for the students, because that was the way they make them to learn. And to make students to learn is to care for them. So these kind of things are also important. Of course, then the one thing that only refugees can have is the lived experience of being refugee, and also the lived experience of resettling. And this is called peer support in a way, that I know what you are going through. I can see the struggles you are having. So I think that this is also something that we need grown-ups at school to teach the other grown-ups. We cannot learn from the students because they are supposed to be children and they are supposed to be as they are. So it's not the learner's job to educate their teacher. So also we need this inclusion in all levels of educational systems and structures, and I'm getting there in a minute. And I think that it's also quite important that we have diversity, more cultural diversity in teacher pool. It means that we need different kinds of people because we have different kinds of learners. So not only a teacher like me, okay, I'm an excellent teacher, maybe, but I'm a white, middle-class, middle-aged native speaker of my country, and if I have lots of students who are not like me, or if all the people who are like them are working in the school cafeteria, or as janitors, or as the cleaners in school, like in many countries happens, that the refugees and migrants are doing the lower level jobs. Can these learners, can these students think that maybe I can be a teacher when I grow up, if all the people who look like me are working in a lower level jobs? So it's really important to have also the role models. We need this cultural diversity in the teacher pool too. We were thinking that maybe you could reflect a bit also while we are doing some other joint exercises or joint reflection, that you could maybe reflect a little bit on if it does make sense to use the skills and knowledge of refugee teachers in also those education facilities where there are just the students from the host country. So do the host country students benefit from refugee teachers? And why and how, if so? But we can get back to it if we have time. So this is the levels we were talking about. This is based on Uriye Bronfenbrenner's jobs. And this means that this individual level means each and every person's individual ways of dealing with other people. So it means pedagogies, it means interpersonal communication. And it means that every member of educational community should gain these skills of interpersonal communication and also intercultural communication, the decolonized mindset in a way. And this needs critical self-reflection. The other level is the educational community level, which means, for instance, schools, educational institutions, and also whether they have these decolonized or culturally responsive practices. Do they have anti-racist actions in the school level? And are these ideas explicitly stated in all documents, all the steering documentary and so on? Is there a diversity in the teacher pool? And are everyone's languages and cultures appreciated? Are they visible? What kind of a person is visible in the school sphere, for instance? And then we need also the educational system, the macro level system, which means, for instance, that is there enough resources to create these kind of structures? Is there leadership supporting these? And is there also diversity in also policy-making pools? Because if there are no refugees making decisions, if there are not multilingual people, if there are not all genders, if there are not people with different ethnic groups, how can we make the school in the policy making? How can we make the system really for everyone? That is the question. Then we also had some more implicit learning outcomes because we faced quite a new thing during the project work. So we had the COVID-19, and it has also affected to the consortium work. It's quite important, not quite important, it's crucial to build up a community. And community is something more than just group of people. Community are people who have shared goals, they are sharing ideas, and they are supporting each other while trying to reach those goals. And during the pandemic, this required extra effort for both the communication and also the platforms. We had quite many, I think, pretty good platforms to use, but it also takes some time to learn these new methods of communication and new methods using these platforms. So in a practical level, it was sometimes a little bit difficult, and it's really sad that we met only once before the pandemic hit. We met almost 2 years ago in Belgium when we learned to know each other a bit. But then after that, we have been communicating only online. And I think that it has shown that we actually need actual contact, and online contact is always a bit restricted. And also this extraordinary situation, we had lockdowns, we had other kind of restrictions. There were quite many uncertainties for the project, but also for the life. So it affected also us in both socially and mentally. And I think that despite of the COVID, we actually managed to do most of the things we were supposed to do. But I think that it required extra effort. For the target group level, it was quite difficult to maintain the community of practice throughout the pandemic. We were supposed to collect and gather more with the people and teachers with refugee backgrounds. But when we were supposed to start with that, the pandemic hit, and then we tried some online meetings and some other WhatsApp type meetings, but it was quite demanding to maintain these. And I think that we also learned that for the people who are facing difficulties, and now I don't think that you should pity us. We didn't face any great difficulties. Well, and I wish that none of the consortium member faced major difficulties during the pandemic, but we faced some difficulties. We had some quite different time in our hands. So this gave us a bit more understanding about those who have faced even much greater obstacles, such as fleeing from their homes. And I think that in these kind of situations, especially for the refugees, people need extra resilience, and they need also somebody to support them, to build up their self-efficacy, to help them to maintain the resilience. So I think that there should be more these kind of soft skills that we were talking about, some of the project works too, more like interpersonal skills, ways of actually taking care of each other. And that is something that I think that in European Union level, we sometimes might forget that we are human beings. One other thing is that the COVID-19 has shown us that the world problems are truly global. And therefore, we must start to build the world more sustainable. Because if the system fails in one part of the globe, it has consequences in all the parts of the globe. And we need it to be more sustainable environmentally, but also societally. So we need to build the world, the globe, better place for everybody to live in and to feel included. And therefore, we need to include all people in the societies they are in. And now I actually want to go back to where we started. First, inclusion is a two-way process. And I want to emphasize that it's not only that those who enter to our place, to my house, only they must learn, because they are not coming as visitors. They are going to live with us. They are not guests. They are family members. So both hosts and guests must learn and evolve. Neither of them has to lose the essence of themselves and their culture and them being, but they both need to learn and evolve. not only the host society and not only the newcomer. So I come back. I'm getting back to where we started. And if you look these notions again, I think you'll see more clearly what we are pointing out. We really need to rethink the structures and practices if we want to build more sustainable future for people and environment. And for the greater scale, the decolonized pedagogies is a good framework to do this, because it questions many of the current truths of societies and invites us for the critical self-reflection, in both societal and structural levels, and also in our personal views. What are our personal views? And one quite useful tool that we are using some of the papers is intersectionalism also, because it's quite practical tool. If you know what a wheel of power and privilege is, it helps you to realize some of the parts of this. But I really think that we should have some critical self-reflection and critical reflection of the world we are living in and the ways we are living in it. And the tools for learning, for the host society learning and for the newcomers learning, they can be acquired through projects like Emergences. And there are many projects working with this kind of problems. And we think that it is a good starting point, but the project-based work has also some disadvantages, because projects are quite short-term projects are very short-term solution to ongoing and never-ending phenomena such as migration, refugee, and education. And if you think again that these people are not visiting us, they are staying with us. They are not guests, they are family members. It's not a project, but it's something that will stay. So we need more long-term systems. In this project, as in many others, we have collected and created different kinds of good practices and success stories and distilled them to the critical elements. And these critical elements you can find in the policy document we have launched. It's also in our web pages, and I think that Suleiman has done a great job with it. Thank you, Suleiman, for that. And we wish that these good practices should and could be promoted with a bigger drum, with lots of noise, because otherwise it is just one project that everybody will put behind after a few months. But for now, I would like to thank you all, and I'm really sorry about the technical problems we were facing. I wish that you get at least some of the ideas of what we have gained. And you will hear many other aspects of the work during today's conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Maya, for your sharing. Especially, we had this problem regarding COVID-19 pandemic. It was a real problem for us, and it's a pity that we could only meet for once. So I wish we could able to meet for more. But I think we managed it to maintain. So for now, our next presentation will be made by Lorena, our Romanian partner. Lorena will do her presentation. Welcome groups, try out the assessment rubric and share feedback. Now Okay, for the first part, we are okay. We have created separate YouTube links so that people can follow easier. So we will create another link so you can follow the program via this link. Thank you. We are now going out.
Chatten atıyoruz. Chat, onu söyleyebiliriz.